26F, stood at the altar, my hand in Alex's. His fingers were warm and steady around mine. The church was filled with sunlight and flowers. Everyone I loved was there. My mom was in the front row, crying happy tears. My dad stood a few feet away, looking serious in his suit. The officiant smiled at us. He was saying the words that would join our lives together forever. He got to the part where he asks if anyone has a reason why we should not be married. This was always a silly part in movies, a moment for a joke or a dramatic ex-lover to burst in. In real life, it was just a formality. A quiet pause before the final vows. But the pause was not quiet. My dad cleared his throat. The sound was loud in the silent church. I looked over at him. His face was pale. He looked sick. My mom looked at him too. Her happy smile was gone. She looked scared. "I object," my dad said. His voice was not strong. It was a hoarse whisper, but everyone heard it. A gasp went through the pews. Alex squeezed my hand tighter. He looked confused. The officiant looked flustered. He said, "Sir, this is a serious moment. Are you certain you wish to speak?" My dad nodded. He took a step forward. He did not look at me. He looked at Alex. "You can't marry him," he said to me, but his eyes were on my fiancé. He finally turned to me and his eyes were full of a terrible sadness. "You can't marry him. He's your brother." The world stopped. The sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows seemed to freeze. The scent of the lilies on the altar was suddenly suffocating. I could not breathe. I looked at Alex. His face was a mask of disbelief. His mouth was slightly open. He shook his head, a tiny, jerky movement. The church was not just quiet. It was dead silent. It was a silence so deep it felt like the world had ended and we were the only ones left. You could hear the blood pounding in my ears. I felt hundreds of eyes on us, but I could only see Alex's face, then my dad's, then my mom's. My mother had her hands over her mouth. A sob escaped, a choked, ugly sound that broke the terrible silence. Then chaos erupted. Whispers turned into loud murmurs. Someone in the back shouted, "What did he say?" Alex let go of my hand. It felt cold all of a sudden. He took a step toward my dad. "What are you talking about?" Alex demanded. His voice was shaking with anger. "Are you insane?" My dad did not back down. He looked from Alex to me. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." My two uncles, my dad's brothers, were suddenly there. They grabbed my dad's arms. "Come on, Bill," one of them said. "Let's go outside." My dad did not fight them. He let them lead him away, but his eyes stayed on me. They were filled with apology and pain. As they walked him down the aisle, the guests parted like the Red Sea. Everyone was staring. Everyone was whispering. My mother was now openly weeping. Alex's parents, who were in the front row opposite my mom, looked horrified and angry. His mother, Sarah, stood up. "This is an outrage," she yelled at my mom's back. "How dare you let him ruin this day?" My mom just kept crying, her shoulders shaking. My maid of honor, Chloe, rushed to my side. She put her arm around my waist. I was swaying. I think I might have fallen if she had not been there. "Let's get you out of here," she whispered. She led me toward the side door of the church, the one that led to the small room where I had waited just an hour before, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. As I walked, I could feel the stares of all our friends and family burning into my back. My wedding dress, which had felt so beautiful and light, now felt like a heavy shroud. In the small room, I sank into a chair. Chloe knelt in front of me. "Are you okay? Can I get you some water?" I could not answer. I was numb. The words kept echoing in my head. "He's your brother. He's your brother." It was impossible. It was a nightmare. My dad had to be sick. He had to have lost his mind. There was no other explanation. Alex was Alex. He was the man I loved. We had met in college. We had built a life together. He was not my brother. He couldn't be. The door opened and Alex came in. His face was white. He looked lost. He came over to me and took my hands. "Laura, this is crazy," he said. "Your dad is, I don't know. He must be having some kind of breakdown. We need to get a doctor for him." I looked into his eyes, searching for something, anything that would make sense. All I saw was the same confusion and horror I felt. "He looks so sure," I whispered. "He's wrong," Alex said firmly. "He has to be wrong. My parents are here. My whole life is... You know my life. You know me." I did know him. I knew everything about him. Or I thought I did. We had spent years sharing our deepest secrets. But this secret, this impossible, life-shattering thing, was something I never could have imagined. Chloe stood up. "I'm going to go see what's happening out there," she said, giving us a moment alone. When she was gone, Alex pulled me to my feet and wrapped his arms around me. I leaned against him, but the comfort I always felt in his embrace was gone. There was a new, terrible distance between us. A question mark had been placed in the center of our relationship, and I did not know how we could ever remove it. "We'll figure this out," he whispered into my hair. "I love you. Nothing can change that." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to wake up from this nightmare and go back to the moment before my dad spoke. But I could not shake the image of my dad's face. He was not a cruel man. He had his faults, and his marriage to my mom was far from perfect, but he loved me. He would not do this to me, not on my wedding day, unless he believed it was true. And that thought was more terrifying than anything. Chloe came back a few minutes later. Her face was grim. "The guests are leaving," she said. "The caterers are asking what to do. Alex's parents are in a screaming match with your mom." My mom. I had to talk to my mom. She would have the answers. She had to. I pulled away from Alex. "I need to see my mother," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It was thin and weak. Alex nodded. "I'll come with you." "No," I said, more forcefully than I intended. "I need to talk to her alone." He looked hurt, but he understood. "Okay, I'll be right here." I walked out of the small room and back into the now empty church. A few stray flowers littered the aisle. The candles on the altar were still burning. My mom was sitting in the front pew, her head in her hands. Alex's parents were gone. She looked up as I approached. Her face was a mess of tears and smudged makeup. "Laura," she sobbed, "I am so sorry. I don't know what got into him. He's lost his mind." I sat down next to her on the hard wooden bench. "Mom, is it true?" I asked. The question felt heavy and wrong in my mouth. "No, of course not," she cried, grabbing my hands. "How can you even ask me that? Alex is a wonderful boy, but he is not my son. Your father is trying to destroy us. He's trying to destroy you to get back at me for everything." Her denial was fierce. It was exactly what I wanted to hear. But it did not feel right. There was a frantic edge to her voice. She was not just denying it. She was trying too hard. It felt like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I remembered the look on her face when my dad first spoke. It was not just shock. It was fear. Pure, absolute fear. "Why would he do this, Mom?" I pressed. "Why would he choose today of all days to say something so horrible if it wasn't true?" "Because he's a vindictive man," she insisted. He found out about something from a long time ago. Something that has nothing to do with you or Alex. He's twisting it to hurt us all." "What did he find out?" I asked. She shook her head, pulling her hands away. "It doesn't matter. It's old history. It's between me and him." "It matters to me," I said, my voice rising. "It matters a lot. My entire life was just blown up in front of 200 people. You have to tell me what's going on." She started crying again, a deep wailing sound that made my stomach churn. "I can't," she sobbed. "Please, Laura, just believe me. Your father is lying." I stood up. I could not sit next to her anymore. The beautiful church felt like a tomb. I need to talk to Dad, I said. No, don't, she pleaded, reaching for me. He'll only fill your head with more lies. I ignored her and walked down the aisle, my wedding dress whispering against the stone floor. I left my weeping mother in the front pew of the empty church. I found Alex and Chloe waiting for me in the vestibule. Alex rushed to my side. What did she say? She said he's lying, I answered, but my voice lacked conviction. See, I told you, he said, a wave of relief washing over his face. We can fix this. We can still get married. We can go to the justice of the peace right now. I looked at him, at this man I loved more than anything. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to run away with him and leave this whole mess behind. But I couldn't. The seed of doubt had been planted. It was a tiny, poisonous seed, but it was there. And until I knew for sure that it was a lie, it would grow and poison everything. I can't, Alex, I said softly. Not yet. I have to understand why this happened. His face fell. The relief was replaced by a deep hurt. You believe him? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. You think it could be true? No, I said quickly. I don't, but I can't just pretend it didn't happen. He's my father. He said those words. I need to know why. Chloe stepped forward. She's right, Alex. You guys can't move forward until this is cleared up. I'll take Laura home. You should go be with your parents. They must be beside themselves. Alex looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded, defeated. He leaned in and kissed my forehead. His lips were cold. Call me, he said. Please, as soon as you talk to him. I will, I promised. He turned and walked out the heavy church doors into the bright afternoon sun, leaving me behind in the shadows. Chloe helped me out of the church and into her car. She had to help me gather the heavy skirt of my dress to fit inside. As we drove away, I looked back at the beautiful old church. The place where my new life was supposed to begin had become the scene of a disaster. The ride to my apartment was silent. I did not know what to say. Chloe did not press me. She just drove, occasionally glancing over at me with worried eyes. When we got to my building, she helped me upstairs. The apartment I shared with Alex felt strange and empty. Our wedding gifts were stacked in a corner. A banner that said, "Congratulations, Laura and Alex," hung over the doorway. I tore it down as soon as I walked in. Chloe helped me out of my wedding dress. Unzipping it felt like shedding a skin. Underneath, I was just me again, but a different me. A me who was standing on shaking ground, unsure of everything she had ever known. I changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt. Chloe made me a cup of tea. I sat on the couch, staring at the blank television screen. What are you going to do? Chloe asked gently, sitting beside me. I'm going to call my dad, I said. My voice was stronger now. The numbness was wearing off, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I needed answers, and I was going to get them. I pulled out my phone. I had dozens of missed calls and texts from friends and family. I ignored them all and found my dad's number. I pressed the call button. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I thought he would not answer. Then, his voice came on the line. Laura? He sounded exhausted. Dad, I said, my voice steady. You and I need to talk. Right now. There was a pause. Okay, sweetheart, he said. Where are you? I'm at my apartment, I replied. Where are you? Your Uncle Joe's house, he said. I can come to you. No, I said. I did not want him here, in the home I had built with Alex. I'll come there. Send me the address. Laura, maybe we should wait, he said. Today has been... No more waiting. I cut him off. You blew up my life, Dad. You owe me an explanation. Now. He sighed. You're right. I'll text you the address. He hung up. A moment later, a text with an address came through. I stood up. Chloe looked at me. Do you want me to come with you? I shook my head. No, this is something I have to do alone. She nodded. Okay, but you call me the second you're done. I don't care what time it is. I will, I promised. I grabbed my keys and my purse and walked out the door. I did not know what I was going to find out. I only knew that whatever it was, my life would never be the same. The drive to my uncle's house felt like an eternity. My mind was racing. I kept replaying the scene at the church over and over. My dad's face, my mom's tears, Alex's shock. It all felt surreal, like a movie I was watching instead of a life I was living. What could possibly have made my dad do such a thing? My parents' marriage had been rocky for years. They fought a lot. They had separated a few times when I was a teenager. My dad was a quiet, reserved man. My mom was more outgoing and dramatic. They were opposites, and while that might have been exciting at first, over the years it had curdled into resentment. My dad often accused my mom of being selfish and flighty. She accused him of being cold and controlling. I loved them both, but I had learned to stay out of their fights. But this was not one of their usual fights. This was something else entirely. This was a nuclear bomb. I finally pulled up to my Uncle Joe's house. It was a modest suburban home with a neat lawn. My dad's car was in the driveway. I took a deep breath and got out of my car. I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. My uncle answered. He was a big man with a kind face. He looked at me with pity in his eyes. "He's in the kitchen, Laura," he said softly. I nodded and walked past him. My dad was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee untouched in front of him. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the last few hours. His face was gray and etched with worry. He stood up when he saw me. "Laura," he said. I did not sit down. I stood across the table from him. "Tell me," I said. "Tell me everything." He ran a hand over his face. "I'm so sorry about how this happened," he began. "I never wanted to hurt you. I swear." "Just tell me why," I said, my voice hard. I did not want apologies. I wanted the truth. He took a deep breath. "A few weeks ago, I was cleaning out the attic. Your mother asked me to find some old photo albums for the wedding display. I found an old box of her things, stuff from before we were married. In it, there was a small diary and letters." He paused, looking at me to see if I was following. I just stared at him, my arms crossed over my chest. "Go on," I said. "I know I shouldn't have read it," he said. "It was wrong, but I saw my name, so I did. The diary was from the year before we got married. Your mother, she was seeing someone else, an older man. She was deeply in love with him, it seemed. And then she found out she was pregnant. My blood ran cold. This was it. This was the secret my mom was so desperate to hide. She wrote about how she couldn't tell him." My dad continued, his voice low. "He was married. It would have ruined his life, and she was scared. She was only 22, so she made a decision. She went away for a few months. She told her parents she was visiting a cousin in another state. That's where she had the baby. A boy. And she gave him up for adoption." I felt dizzy. I had to grab the back of a chair to steady myself. A baby. My mother had a baby she never told anyone about. When she came back, she broke it off with this other man. My dad said. A few months later, she and I started dating seriously. We got married the next year. You were born 2 years after that. She never told me. For 30 years, she kept this a secret. "How do you know Alex is that baby?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It could be anyone. It's a horrible coincidence, that's all." I was repeating my mother's words, my own desperate hope. My dad shook his head sadly. "It's not a coincidence, Laura." In the letters she wrote to her best friend at the time, she mentioned the name of the adoption agency. And she mentioned the name she gave the baby on the original birth certificate. The name she gave him was Alexander. The room started to spin. Alexander. Alex. It could still be a coincidence. It had to be. That's not enough, Dad. I said, It's not proof. It's a common name. I know, he said. I thought the same thing. I hoped I was wrong. I spent the last 2 weeks trying to find out for sure. I hired a private investigator. A private investigator. My dad, the quiet, non-confrontational man, had hired a private investigator to look into my fiancé. The situation was getting more and more insane. He found the records, my dad said, his voice heavy with grief. The adoption was private. The file was sealed, but he found a way. The birth mother is listed as your mother, Catherine Miller. The birth date matches. The location matches. The baby's name was Alexander. It's him, Laura. There's no doubt. I sank into the chair. I could not stand anymore. It was true. It was all true. The man I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with was my half-brother. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I thought I was going to be sick. Why did you wait until the wedding? I whispered, looking up at him. Why would you humiliate me like that? Why didn't you tell me before? He looked ashamed. I didn't get the final confirmation until yesterday morning, he said. The investigator called me. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. I went to your mother last night. I confronted her with it. I begged her to tell you, to stop the wedding. I told her if she didn't, I would. So my mom knew. She knew last night, and she still let me walk down that aisle. The betrayal was so immense, so profound, it was like a physical blow. She denied it, my dad continued. She swore it was all lies. She said I was trying to ruin her happiness, to ruin your happiness. She was so convincing for a moment, I almost believed her. I almost thought maybe the investigator had made a mistake. I stayed up all night, wondering what to do. I went to the church this morning hoping she would have come to her senses, that she would have told you. When I saw you walking down the aisle, I knew she hadn't. I couldn't let you do it, Laura. I couldn't let you make that mistake. It would have destroyed you later. I'm so sorry for the way I did it. But I had to stop it. I sat there in silence, trying to process the enormity of what he was telling me. My mother had a secret son. That son was Alex. And she had known since last night, at least, and she had let the wedding go forward. What kind of person does that? What kind of mother does that to her own daughter? Does Alex know? I asked quietly. Does he know he's adopted? My dad shook his head. I don't think so. According to the investigator, his parents never told him. They were the ones who adopted him directly from the agency. So Alex was a victim in all of this, too. He had no idea. His whole world was about to be turned upside down, just like mine. I thought of his hurt face at the church. He thought my dad was crazy. He had no idea that my dad was telling the truth. I stood up. I need to go, I said. Laura, wait, my dad said, reaching for my arm. Are you okay? I pulled my arm away. No, Dad. I'm not okay, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. I'm not okay at all. I turned and walked out of the house, leaving him standing alone in his brother's kitchen. I got in my car and just drove. I had no destination. I just needed to move. The tears I had been holding back finally came. I sobbed. Great. Heaving sobs that racked my whole body. I had to pull over to the side of the road because I could not see through the tears. My brother. Alex was my brother. We had been together for 5 years. We had lived together for 3. We had shared a bed. We had built a life. We were in love. The thought was so repulsive, so fundamentally wrong, it made me feel sick to my stomach. Everything we had was built on a lie my own mother had kept for her entire life. And she had known. That was the part I could not get past. She had known, and she had let me almost marry my brother. Why? Was she that much of a coward? Or was she something worse? Was she malicious? The woman in the church, crying and playing the victim, was not the person I thought she was. She was a stranger, a monster who had almost let her children commit a sin that would have haunted them forever. After a long time, the tears subsided. I was left with a hollow feeling in my chest. The grief was still there, but something else was starting to grow in its place. A cold, hard anger. Anger at my mother for her lies. Anger at my father for his timing, even if his intentions were good. Anger at the universe for playing such a cruel trick on me and Alex. I knew what I had to do next. I had to tell Alex. He deserved to know the truth. He deserved to know who he was and who his mother was. I dreaded it more than anything I had ever done in my life. It was a conversation that would end our relationship forever. It would break both of our hearts. But it had to be done. I took out my phone. I had a text from him. "Please call me, I'm so worried." My hands were shaking as I dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. "Laura, are you okay? What did your dad say?" I took a deep breath. "Alex, can you meet me?" I asked, my voice flat and empty. "We need to talk." "Of course," he said, his voice full of concern. "Where are you? I'll come to you." "No," I said. I could not do this at my apartment or his parents' house. I needed a neutral place. A place with no memories. "Meet me at the park by the lake." The one we went to on our first date. It was a cruel choice, but it felt fitting. The place where our love story began would also be the place where it ended. "Okay," he said, sounding confused by my tone. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and started the car. The drive to the park was a blur. I parked the car and walked to the bench overlooking the water. It was the same bench where we had sat for hours 5 years ago, talking and laughing, falling in love. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, but I felt nothing. I saw him walking toward me. Even from a distance, I could see the anxiety on his face. He sat down next to me on the bench. He reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. I could not touch him. Not now. He looked hurt. "Laura?" "What is it?" he asked. "What's wrong? You're scaring me." I turned to look at him. I looked into his eyes, the eyes I loved so much, and I tried to find the words. "My dad wasn't lying, Alex," I said. The words came out quiet, but they felt like a gunshot in the still evening air. He stared at me, his brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Of course he was lying. He had a breakdown. We need to get him help." "No," I said, shaking my head. "He's not crazy. He found out a secret my mother has been keeping for almost 30 years. I told him everything. I told him about the diary and the letters. I told him about my mother's affair and the baby she gave up for adoption. I told him about the private investigator and the sealed records. I told him the baby's name was Alexander. I watched his face as I spoke. The confusion slowly melted away, replaced by a dawning horror. His face went pale. He started shaking his head, as if he could physically deny the words I was saying. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not possible. My parents, they're my parents." "Alex," I said gently, "you're adopted." He flinched as if I had slapped him. "That's not true," he said, his voice rising. "You're lying. Why are you saying these things?" "I'm not lying," I said. "My dad has proof. Your parents never told you." He stood up and started pacing back and forth in front of the bench. "No, no, no, no." He was talking to himself more than to me. He ran his hands through his hair. He looked trapped, like a caged animal. "This can't be happening." He stopped pacing and looked at me, his eyes wild. Even if it's true that I'm adopted," he said, struggling with the words, "that doesn't mean it can't be your mother. It's a coincidence. It has to be." "It's not, Alex," I said sadly. "The records prove it. Her name is on the birth certificate, Catherine Miller. My mother is your birth mother." He sank back down onto the bench, completely defeated. He stared out at the water, his body rigid with shock. We sat in silence for a long time. The sun dipped below the horizon and the park grew dark. The beautiful colors in the sky faded to a deep, bruised purple. Finally, he spoke, his voice so quiet I could barely hear him. So all this time, we were... He could not even say the word. Yes, I whispered. He buried his face in his hands. I could hear him crying, quiet, heartbroken sobs. I wanted to reach out and comfort him. I wanted to hold him and tell him it would be okay. But I couldn't. The new reality stood between us like a wall of glass. We could see each other, but we could never touch again. He finally lifted his head. His eyes were red and swollen. "Your mother?" he said, his voice filled with a new, cold anger. "Did she know? When did she know it was me?" "My dad told her last night," I said. "He confronted her. He begged her to stop the wedding. She denied everything and let it happen anyway." The look on his face was terrifying. The love and warmth I had always seen there were gone, replaced by a deep, chilling hatred. "She let this happen," he said, his voice dangerously low. "She knew. She knew and she watched us. She smiled at us. She helped us plan the wedding. She knew we were brother and sister and she was going to let us get married." The full weight of our mother's betrayal seemed to hit him all at once. It was not just about the past anymore. It was about the present. It was about her active, willing participation in this horror show. "I have to go," he said, standing up abruptly. "I have to talk to the people who raised me. I have to ask them why they lied to me my whole life." He looked at me and his expression softened for a moment. "Laura, I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," I said, tears welling up in my eyes again. "It's not your fault either," he replied. He stood there for a moment, looking at me as if he was trying to memorize my face. Then he turned and walked away without another word. I watched him go until he disappeared into the darkness. And then I was alone. Truly, completely alone. Our relationship was over. Our life together was a lie. Our love was a tragedy. I sat on that bench for hours, long after the park was empty. I felt like a ghost, haunting the place where my happiness had begun and ended. I did not know how I was going to move on from this. I did not know how to unlove someone who was now, by a cruel twist of fate, my brother. Eventually, I made my way back to my car and drove home to the apartment. Chloe was waiting for me. She had been texting me constantly, but I had ignored my phone. She took one look at my face and knew. She just wrapped her arms around me and held me while I cried myself empty. The next few days were a blur of pain and logistics. We had to call all the vendors and cancel everything. We had to arrange for the gifts to be returned. Every phone call was a fresh wave of humiliation, having to explain that the wedding was off. I did not give details. I just said it was for personal reasons. Alex and I communicated through text messages. It was too painful to talk. We agreed that he would come get his things while I was out of the apartment. I did not think I could bear to watch him pack up the life we had built together. I went to stay with Chloe for a couple of days. When I came back, his clothes were gone from the closet. His toothbrush was gone from the bathroom. The photos of us that had covered the walls were taken down, leaving pale rectangles on the painted surface. It was like he had been erased. The only thing he left was a note on the kitchen counter. It just said, "I'm sorry for everything. I will always love you." I read the note and cried until there were no tears left. I did not speak to my mother. She called me dozens of times, but I never answered. She sent me long, rambling texts full of excuses and apologies. She said she had been scared. She said she had not known what to do. She said she had loved Alex like a son from the moment she met him, and she had just wanted us to be happy. Her words were hollow and meaningless to me. She was not a scared mother. She was a cruel, selfish woman who had gambled with her children's lives to protect her own dirty secret. My dad called me every day to check on me. I spoke to him, but our conversations were short and strained. I knew he had done the right thing, but I could not shake the anger I felt about the way he had done it. He had saved me from a terrible mistake, but he had also shattered my world in the most public and painful way possible. I knew it would take a long time for me to forgive him for that. A week after the wedding that never was, I was sitting in my silent apartment trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me press the green button. "Hello?" I said. "Is this Laura?" A woman's voice asked. It was a voice I recognized, but I could not place it. "Yes. Who is this?" I asked. "It's Sarah," the voice said. "Sarah Peterson, Alex's mother." My heart skipped a beat. I had not spoken to her or her husband since the disaster at the church. I could only imagine how they felt. They had been lied to and humiliated just as much as I had. "Sarah," I said. "I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault, dear," she said, her voice kind but strained. "None of this is your fault. I'm calling because, well, my husband and I think you deserve to know the whole truth. Alex knows now, and we think you should too. We owe you that." "The whole truth?" I asked, confused. I thought I knew. "You know what your mother did," she said, "but you don't know why. You don't know how deep her manipulation went. Can we meet? We'd like to tell you in person." A new wave of dread washed over me. There was more? How could there possibly be more? But I knew I had to hear it. I needed to understand the full scope of my mother's deceit. "Yes," I said. "When and where?" We agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop the next day. I barely slept that night. My mind was racing, trying to imagine what else there could be. What could be worse than what I already knew? The next day, I sat in the coffee shop, my hands wrapped around a warm mug, waiting for them. Sarah and Tom Peterson arrived a few minutes later. They looked tired and sad. They had aged years in the past week. We sat in a quiet corner booth. "Thank you for meeting us, Laura," Tom said, his voice heavy. "How is Alex?" I asked. It was the first question on my mind. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "He's devastated," she said. "He's staying with us. He won't leave his room. He feels like his entire life has been a lie. First, learning he was adopted, and then this. He's in a very dark place." My heart ached for him. This was my fault in a way. I was the one who had brought him into this toxic family. "We came here to tell you our side of the story," Tom said, getting straight to the point. "We want you to know that we never would have lied to Alex if we had known the truth. We were lied to as well." He explained that when they adopted Alex, it was a closed adoption. They were told that the birth mother was a young college student who was not ready to be a parent. They never knew her name. They loved Alex from the moment they saw him and raised him as their own. They decided not to tell him he was adopted because they did not want him to feel different or rejected. They admitted now that it was a mistake, but they had done it out of love. "About 10 years ago," Sarah continued, her voice trembling, "I received a letter. It was from a woman who claimed to be Alex's birth mother. She said she had found me through a service that connects adoptees with their birth families. She said she didn't want to disrupt our lives, but she just wanted to know that her son was happy and healthy." My blood ran cold. "It was my mother," I said. It was not a question. Sarah nodded. "Yes, it was Catherine. We exchanged a few letters. She told me a story about being a scared young girl who had made a mistake. She seemed so full of regret. I felt sorry for her. I sent her a few pictures of Alex. I told her what a wonderful young man he had become. I thought I was doing a kind thing. Then, a few years later, you and Alex started dating," Tom said, picking up the story. "When you brought him home to meet your parents for the first time, your mother recognized his name. She must have put it all together. She called me a few days after that first meeting," Sarah said. "She was hysterical. She said it was a 1 in a billion coincidence. She said she had no idea. She begged me not to say anything. She said it would destroy you both. She said you were so in love and she couldn't bear to be the one to ruin it. She swore she had no idea it was her son until you said his last name. I stared at her, horrified. This was a new level of manipulation. My mother had not just passively allowed this to happen. She had actively worked to keep her secret hidden, roping Alex's parents into her web of lies. We believed her, Tom said, his voice full of self-loathing. We felt trapped. What were we supposed to do? Tell our son that the mother of the girl he loved was also his own mother? How do you tell someone that? We hoped that you would break up, that it was just a college romance that would fade away. But you didn't break up, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face now. You fell deeper in love. You moved in together. You got engaged. And with every step, the lie got bigger and bigger. Catherine would call us sometimes, crying, saying she didn't know what to do. She made us feel like we were all in this terrible situation together. She made us her co-conspirators. I felt sick. My mother had not been a passive victim of fate. She had been the puppet master, pulling all the strings. She had known for years, not just since the night before the wedding. She had known since the day I first brought Alex home. She had watched us fall in love. She had smiled at our engagement announcement. She had helped me pick out my wedding dress. All the while, she knew the truth, the monstrous, twisted truth. We are so ashamed, Tom said, his head in his hands. We should have told him. We should have told you. We were cowards. We let your mother manipulate us. Can you ever forgive us? I looked at these two people, their faces etched with guilt and sorrow. They had made a terrible mistake. They had lied to their son, but they had been manipulated by a master. My mother had played on their love for Alex, their fear of hurting him. They were victims too, in a way. I'm not the one you need to ask for forgiveness, I said quietly. You need to talk to Alex, but for what it's worth, I understand why you did what you did. My mother, she can be very convincing. We sat in silence for another moment. Then I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Why did she do it? Why would she let it go so far? Why didn't she just tell us at the beginning? Sarah looked at me, her eyes full of a sad wisdom. Because she is the most selfish person I've ever met, she said. She told me once, in one of her letters, that giving up Alex was the great regret of her life. When you brought him back to her, it was like a gift from the universe. She got to have her son in her life without ever having to confess her secret. She got to have her cake and eat it too. She never thought about the consequences for you or for him. She only thought about herself. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was the truth. My mother had not been thinking about my happiness. She had been trying to fix her own past, no matter the cost. She had wanted her lost son back, and she did not care that the price was my heart. And his. I left the coffee shop with a new, chilling clarity. My grief was still there, a deep, aching wound. But the anger had crystallized into something else. Something cold and hard and focused. My mother had not just made a mistake. She had orchestrated a catastrophe. She had played with our lives like they were dolls, and she was not going to get away with it. The desire for peace was gone. Now, I wanted revenge. I went home and called my dad. I need to see you, I said. I need to know everything you found out. I want to see the investigator's report. I want to see the letters. I want to see everything. He did not question me. He just said, I'll bring it over. An hour later, he was at my apartment with a thick folder. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Alex and I used to eat dinner, and he laid it all out for me. The copies of my mother's diary entries, the letters she had written to her friend, the investigator's report detailing the search for the adoption records, and at the bottom of the pile, the final, damning piece of evidence. A copy of Alexander Peterson's original birth certificate. Birth mother, Catherine Miller. birth father, unknown. I read through it all, my stomach twisting with each new detail. It was all there in black and white, the whole sordid story of my mother's secret life. As I read, my plan began to form. My mother had built her entire life on a foundation of lies. She had a perfect public image: the devoted wife, the loving mother, the respected member of the community. I was going to tear that foundation down, brick by brick. I was going to expose her for who she really was. My chance came a few weeks later. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was having her 75th birthday party. It was a big family event. Everyone was going to be there. All the aunts, uncles, and cousins who had whispered about me at my disastrous wedding. My mother had been trying to get in touch with me, begging me to come, to show a united front. She wanted to pretend that everything was okay, that we were still a happy family. She had no idea what I had planned. I told her I would be there. I could hear the relief in her voice. She thought I was ready to forgive her, to help her sweep this all under the rug. She was wrong. The day of the party, I dressed carefully. I chose a simple black dress. I did my makeup. I wanted to look calm and composed. I wanted to look strong. I made copies of the most important documents from my dad's folder: the birth certificate and a particularly revealing letter my mother had written to her friend, describing her plan to give the baby up without the father ever knowing. I put them in my purse. I drove to my grandmother's house. Walking in was one of the hardest things I had ever done. The room was filled with relatives. The moment I walked in, all conversation stopped. Everyone turned to look at me. I could feel their pity and their curiosity. I ignored them and walked straight to where my mother was holding court, laughing with her sisters. She saw me and her face lit up with a brilliant fake smile. "Laura, darling, I'm so glad you came." She rushed over to hug me. I stepped back, out of her reach. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice low and clear. Her smile faltered. The people standing near us went quiet. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, trying to keep up the facade. "I think you know what's wrong," I said, my voice getting louder, drawing more attention. "I know everything, Mom. I know about the affair. I know about the baby. I know you've known for years that Alex was your son." Her face went white. She grabbed my arm. "Laura, not here," she hissed. "We can talk about this at home." I pulled my arm away. "No," I said firmly. "We're going to talk about it right here, in front of everyone. You love an audience, don't you?" "Well, you have one." By now, the entire party had fallen silent. Everyone was watching us. My grandmother was looking at us with a worried expression. My aunts were whispering to each other. "I don't know what you're talking about," my mother said, her voice shaking. "Your father has been filling your head with lies." "Lies?" I said with a cold laugh. "Really? Then I guess this is a lie too." I reached into my purse and pulled out the copy of the birth certificate. I held it up for her to see. "This is Alex's birth certificate. Your name is right here. Catherine Miller, mother." A collective gasp went through the room. My mother stared at the paper as if it were a snake. She looked like she was going to faint. "And this," I continued, pulling out the letter, "is a letter you wrote to your friend Linda. The one where you talked about your married lover and how you were going to get rid of the baby so it wouldn't ruin his life. Or yours." I started to read the letter aloud. My mother's own words, written 30 years ago, echoed through the silent room. Her callous dismissal of her unborn child, her selfish concerns for her own reputation. With every word I read, I could see the image of the perfect woman my family thought they knew shattering before their eyes. My mother tried to stop me. She lunged for the letter, but I held it out of her reach. "Stop it," she shrieked. "You're ruining everything." "You ruined everything," I yelled back, the composure I had fought so hard to maintain finally cracking. "You ruined my life. You ruined Alex's life. You let your own children fall in love and almost get married just to protect your disgusting little secret. You are not a mother. You are a monster." She broke down then. sinking to the floor in a heap of sobs. But no one rushed to comfort her. Her sisters, who had been standing by her side, took a step back. My grandmother was staring at her with a look of pure horror and disbelief. My uncles were shaking their heads. They were all looking at her as if they had never seen her before. And in a way, they hadn't. I had just shown them the real person behind the mask. I dropped the papers on the floor next to her. "Happy birthday, Grandma," I said, my voice filled with a bitter irony. Then I turned and walked out of the house. I did not look back. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for my mother. My grandmother, a woman who valued family and honesty above all else, was deeply ashamed. She told my mother that she did not want to see her until she had made things right, which everyone knew was impossible. My aunts and uncles, who had always been a tight-knit group, froze her out. They were disgusted by her actions. Her friends, who had heard the story through the family grapevine, stopped calling. Her perfect world, the one she had so carefully constructed, had crumbled to dust. My dad filed for divorce a week later. There was no fight. She had nothing left to fight with. He told me she had to sell the house we grew up in because she could not afford it on her own. She moved into a small, sad apartment on the other side of town. The last I heard, she was working a low-paying retail job. She had lost everything. Her husband, her family, her home, her reputation, and both of her children. It was a brutal revenge, but I did not feel the satisfaction I thought I would. I just felt empty. Destroying her life had not fixed mine. It had not brought Alex back. It had not erased the pain. I sold the apartment and moved to a new city a few months later. I needed a fresh start, a place where no one knew my name or my story. I got a new job. I made new friends. I started going to therapy to deal with the trauma. Slowly, very slowly, I began to heal. I did not hear from Alex for over a year. I respected his need for space. I knew he was going through his own journey of healing and discovery. I often wondered what had happened with him and the Petersons, and if he had ever tried to find his birth father. Then, one day, I received a letter. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting on the front. It was from Alex. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter was long. He told me about the year he had just been through. He had confronted the Petersons, and their relationship had been strained for a while, but they were working through it. They were in family counseling together. He had forgiven them. He understood that they had been victims of my mother's manipulation, too. He told me he had hired an investigator to find his birth father. The investigator had found him. His name was Michael. He was a widower with 2 grown daughters. He had never known about Alex. My mother had broken up with him and disappeared without a word. He had been heartbroken at the time, but he had moved on with his life. Alex wrote that meeting Michael and his half-sisters was the most terrifying and wonderful experience of his life. They had welcomed him with open arms. They were angry at my mother for her deceit, but they were overjoyed to have him in their family. For the first time, he said, he felt like he knew who he was. He was not just the product of a shameful secret. He was a son and a brother. He had a family that wanted him, a family that was not built on lies. He ended the letter by talking about us. He wrote that he would never forget the love we shared. He said that in a different world, a world not poisoned by our mother's secrets, we would have been happy. But that was not our world. He said he was finally starting to move on, and he hoped I was too. He wished me a lifetime of happiness, the happiness we were supposed to have together. He signed it. Your friend, Alex. Not love, not yours, just friend. It was the right word, but it still hurt. I folded the letter and put it away. The tears that came were not tears of grief, but of release. His letter had given me the closure I did not know I needed. He was going to be okay. And so was I. My mother still tries to contact me sometimes. She sends cards on my birthday and holidays. They are filled with desperate apologies and pleas for forgiveness. I never reply. There is nothing she can say that will ever undo the damage she has done. Forgiveness is not something she deserves. My revenge was not just about exposing her, it was about taking away her power, the power to lie, to manipulate, to hurt. She now lives in a world of her own making, a world without family, without love, without respect. She is alone with her secrets, and that is a punishment far greater than anything I could have ever devised. My life is quiet now. It is simple. I have Chloe, who remains my rock. I have my dad, with whom I am slowly rebuilding our relationship. We don't talk about my mother. We don't need to. We are both moving forward. Sometimes late at night, I think about Alex. I hope he is happy. I hope he has found peace. Our love story was a tragedy, a beautiful, impossible thing that was doomed from the start. But it was real, and a small part of me will always love the man who was almost my husband, and who will always be my brother. It's a strange and heavy burden to carry, but it is mine, and I am learning to live with it. The scars are still there, but they are a part of me now. A reminder of the life I lost and the strength I found in the wreckage. My mother thought she could control our destinies, but in the end, we were the ones who got to write our own endings. And mine was just beginning.